Hi, Denise, Naylor here. Last month my accountancy students had to write an assignment on financial appraisal methods. One of them, Nadia, commented, "Denise, I'm finding this subject too theoretical. Can you give some concrete examples to make it stick?" Here's what's interesting. For many people, it's the practical examples that bring the subject alive, because it helps you to grasp what's really going on. So Nadia, in this video, I aim to explain a practical example of how your financial appraisal fits into business and investment decision making. But let's take a step back before we get into detail. Financial appraisal methods are used as part of a wider process, more commonly known as due diligence. This is important because money is the measure that business owners and investors use to track their success. But you see, due diligence is a much wider process than just financial appraisal, because you need to consider much more than the financial results. I like to think of due diligence as a full and complete understanding of what you're considering. The Oxford Dictionary defines due as owed to, or something that ought to be given to, and to be diligent means to be careful. So in the due diligence process, you give your proposed project the care and attention it deserves. Before you start, you must know what success in your project means to you. Not to someone else, to you. You might want a financial return on your capital. You might want to learn something new. Or perhaps it's relationships you want or need to form to grow your business or investments. This is important because unless you set targets and measure results against your targets, you are in danger of changing your mind, getting knocked off balance by other people's opinions, and never making an investment at all. This reminds me of Jane. I first met Jane, an energetic young person, about 8 or 9 years ago. "Denise, I've inherited some money and I want to start a buy-to-let property. I live in Brighton, where property looks very expensive, but I've been offered a deal in Manchester." It was 6 months before I heard from Jane again. "Well, hi Jane, how's your property in Manchester doing?" "Oh, Denise, my broker was telling me about a client of his who invests in Nottingham. Perhaps Manchester's not so good. Maybe I should try Nottingham. And then last week I went to a property seminar and the speaker was saying that Southampton is a hot area to invest in. I'm so confused and still haven't bought anything." You see, Jane hadn't figured out what success meant to her, so she was continually swayed by other people's opinions. And if you haven't set your targets, you'll end up aiming for someone else's targets, and that's a fast way to feeling confused and out of control. Because if you want success in investing, particularly in property investing, you must control your own decisions. You must gain a full and complete understanding of what you are considering. In this video, I'm going to share with you the practical due diligence I carry out on my property investments in Leeds, United Kingdom. I own some 2-bed rental houses close to the centre of Leeds as part of my investment portfolio. Now, as with all my investments, I set financial targets. My financial aims for my 2-bed houses in Leeds are that I want to make an initial in cash investment into a house of between £12,000 and £14,000 and to receive a cash inflow after all expenses of between £1,800 and £2,000 every year. In percentage terms, that works out at a return on investment of 14%. Here's one of my Leeds houses. Now, before you gasp in horror, keep in mind that these are my aims. They're not right or wrong, they're not good or bad, they're simply my aims for this part of my portfolio. But when I started investing in Leeds, I faced more than simply financial targets. You see, it was my first investment outside my immediate neighbourhood in London. So I faced the challenge of finding, choosing and maintaining a relationship with a lettings agent to manage the properties that I was planning on buying. That's their vehicle you can see outside the property in the picture, by the way. Now you might be thinking to yourself, if you already invest successfully in London, why invest outside London? Well, because I could no longer find a way to invest initial cash of between £12,000 and £14,000 and to receive cash inflow after all expenses of £1,800 to £2,000 a year. Prices had moved too high in London for me to reach those targets. So okay, let's say you've set your aims. What do you do now? You start with a desktop study. The desktop answers the question, is your project feasible? For a desktop on buying a rental property, you have a few key things to look at. The local authorities' rules and regulations covering planning, building and renting. Local employment and industry statistics. The geology of the area and environmental data. You don't want to buy a house that might fall down an old mine shaft, do you? Transport routes, demographics. You want to know if the population is increasing or are people leaving the area? Is there a large student population? Is it a retirement area? And so on. You look at property advertisements to assess demand for rentals and how much rent you can charge. You search local press for relevant news items and social media for comment on what it's like to live and work in the area. In short, you want to find out as much as you can about your area without actually having to walk the streets. As we say in business schools, you need to swat that pest. When your desktop is complete, you'll be able to answer the question, is it feasible for you to invest between £12,000 and £14,000 in this area and to receive cash inflow after all expenses of between £1,800 and £2,000 every year? Yes or no? And only if the answer is yes, do you move on to the second level of due diligence, and this is the detailed study. Now, the detailed study answers the question, does your project sound favourable? The detailed study includes full spreadsheets of cash flow forecasts and profit forecasts. Here is where your accountancy comes in handy. And you include net present value and payback and other financial calculations that you want to use. You want to include your detailed analysis of the marketplace. If you are investigating a company, you'll be preparing a financial statement analysis of their published accounts. So what would you include in a detailed study for a rental property? Well, first you need to find an expected monthly rent for your forecasts. You might have estimated this in your desktop, but at this second level you contact estates agents and lettings agents to get some live data. I phoned every lettings agent I could find listed in Leeds in my attempts to discover what tenants were paying for rent, not just what was advertised. And you need to estimate each and every line of expenditure: insurance, agent fees, gas safety checks, finance costs, repairs and maintenance, furniture, legal and accountancy costs. And if your detailed study comes up with a favourable picture, you continue to the third level. And the third level is the drill down. And the drill down is designed to answer the question, does your project look fruitful? While you can often do the first two levels without physically leaving your desk, in my experience, you can't really do your drill down from the computer. At this third level, you now need to get out, wear out some shoe leather, walking the streets, speak to people on the ground. You must meet agents, view properties, talk to builders, and make offers. A great tip for your drill down is to use checklists. I use checklists for every aspect of my drill down, right down to the detail of features that the house must or must not have to stay on my shortlist. To give you some idea, my drill down rules include no basements and no paint or pebble dash on outside walls, because you can't really see the condition of the walls. I also have rules about distance from transport and size of property. Having rules makes it easy for me to make my final choice about whether or not to add the property to my portfolio. But in all times, keep in mind that it's a process. It's not a boilerplate. It's not a one-size spreadsheet fits all. You definitely need to engage your human brain and touch before you make your choice. Now, when you've completed all three levels of this due diligence process, you will have a full and complete understanding of what you are considering. The due diligence process won't give you the perfect answer. For that, you need a crystal ball telling you the future. But once you know your targets and you do your three levels of due diligence, you'll be ready to make your decision, knowing that your choice has a great chance of meeting your targets. So Nadia, I hope this video helps you get more value from your accountancy studies. I wish everyone watching great success. Let me know what you think, and do join me again.